Award-winning futurist researcher and keynote speaker Nikolas Badminton joining us on Canada Now for his weekly visit. Nick, truck drivers had been protesting against a vaccine mandate requiring all travelers, including essential workers like truck drivers, to be fully vaccinated before crossing the border. It's been such a hot topic around the country. Meanwhile, what of the possibility of driverless trucks on the road?
Yeah, there's been a lot of challenges with logistics and truck drivers, the availability of them really over the past few years. There's just not enough drivers on the road. So this is another pinch to the industry. And, I'm going to save my opinions for another time. But what's interesting is that there's a number of companies that are out there for a number of years. They've been working on autonomous trucks. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. If you can actually have, trucks that can run ostensibly 24/7, 365 without needing to stop because of all sorts of, labor laws around, amount of time on the road and fatigue and whatever, it means that we can get goods to places more quickly. And in all reality, these truck drivers, whilst they're, very skilled at their job, they can actually be replaced by, self-driving algorithms that use cameras and potentially even like autonomous lanes on highways as well.
Yeah. So these self-driving trucks, they're being operated using, as you mentioned, cameras, radars, laser scanners, GPS antennas that communicate with piloting software. I mean, do you envision a time where this becomes the norm? But, maybe they've got their own lanes. They're protected. Well, we're protected from them. The autonomous trucks. Do you think that that's the vision moving forward?
Yeah, I think the trucking, shipping, local delivery are going to be some of the first things that really embrace sort of autonomous vehicles. I think it's the idea that we're all going to be, calling up autonomous vehicles, taxis and whatever in the large cities or even sort of suburbs or exurbs that we live in is a little bit further away. I think that this is really sensible. It's really sensible from a national and local logistical perspective. It's really sensible from an industrial perspective as well. We've seen a huge amount of labor shortages in a whole bunch of different industries, from like agriculture all the way through to trucking, as I spoke about earlier. So yeah, and sure, you know what? If you do actually start putting together the idea of an infrastructure built for autonomous trucking around Canada and North America, and maybe across Europe as well, then it makes a lot of sense, because these vehicles can literally be in their own lane, to use a term, but they can all share it and they can all run highly efficiently. This is going to be like the internet of trucks and the internet of vehicles that deliver goods. So being able to communicate between them and being able to coordinate all of that is going to be something to be worked out. But I think it's inevitable that this is going to be pretty commonplace. And I think, looking at it from 2022, the next 8 years is going to be pivotal to really establish this new infrastructure.
You don't see, though, trucks driving themselves entirely from point A to point B. Like, you think at some point humans may be going to take it the rest of the way, as if the truck is going to run the 99 yards, but someone else is going to hop in to help them spike the ball.
Yeah, sort of that last mile or last few miles delivery is I think, going to be part of the puzzle as well. There's a company called Ike, and they've been sort of bought by different companies and technology taking off here and there. And Ike had this idea of point-to-point autonomous trucking with last mile delivery. So someone would load up with goods and it would drive them to a hub at the beginning of a highway. And then from that highway, everything would be programmed and the truck would be sent off down the highway, several hundred kilometers. And when they reach their destination, which might be within sort of 10 miles of the final destination, then you have an experienced truck driver get in, check everything, and sort of weave it through the streets that it needs to be weaved through, because that's when it gets really tricky with autonomous trucking as well. And what's interesting is as this industry matures and these solutions get better, then, you know, we can sort of start to remove sort of the humans from the equation of doing that. But I really think that, you know, there's going to be a multitude of solutions. And I do think that this world of autonomous, you know, vehicles and systems and whatever is about human and the machine. I don't see like hundreds of thousands of truck drivers going out of work. I just think that they're going to be used for their wisdom and knowledge to do these more highly skilled jobs, and even be the people that coordinate multiple trucks in the HQ. So these are going to be people that are going to be in operations centers, really controlling what's happening. And I think that this is going to be good for the industry as a whole.
Continuing to be vital, absolutely. So in talking about where it's being tested the most, would you say at this point it's Texas in the U.S. where we're seeing this the most?
Yeah, so there's like Arizona and Texas, and there's a number of different companies that have literally driven from the west to the east coast of the United States with very little human intervention. You know, they're testing it in places where the road rules allow them to do it, and the governments are kind of progressive and want to make this technology happen. And Texas and Arizona are two of those places for sure. You know, this is not without risks. So companies like Waymo and such, and I think Neuron as well, and True Simple are really starting to take baby steps. But you know, these are well-funded companies, and they really do believe in this idea of an autonomous logistics future. And I think that we need to embrace that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and Texas seems all in. In 2018, they passed a law that essentially gave autonomous cars the same status as conventional vehicles. And this is clearly a state that fully supports driverless vehicles. And this happening in Texas isn't a fluke, because the state has the largest number of truck drivers, many qualified engineers. It's sunny, just like in Arizona, which is great for the truck sensors. And Mexico is nearby and exports 85% of its goods to Texas by road. So Texas seems like the perfect testing ground for all this.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. And you bring up Mexico. I mean, what happens when you've got a country that's more advanced than another country it's driving into? So this is going to be an issue. So these closed ecosystems of like delivering goods from point A to point B in Canada, or point A to point B in the States, or within a particular state, is a fairly simple problem to fix. It's slightly more difficult when you've got to go through border customs, because there's a whole bunch of processes around autonomous vehicles going through there, and the infrastructure once they get into a different country might be completely different. I think that we're going to see a lot more experimentation on that front in Europe. You know, mainland Europe there. But I do think that, you know, that does highlight some issues for sure. But again, if we think about the model of point to point with skilled drivers taking it for the last few miles, maybe it's like you drive from one side of the US down to the Mexican border, the skilled pilot of the vehicle then jumps in and takes the last few hundred kilometers of the ride into Mexico, or vice versa, right? And I think that, you know, there are always ways to work out this solution, you know.
Check out NikolasBadminton.com, futurist researcher, keynote speaker, Nikolas Badminton. Always a pleasure, pal. We'll talk again next week.
Keep on trucking, Jeff.